This is Conversation for Adults with Jimmy Israel.
The number you have dialed has been changed.
Then the people of the church had sort of gotten kind of frosty with me, but it all worked out. I continued to come while my mother was alive, while my mother was at the church, and gave it a few years, and then I left the church and thought I was going to leave God and church altogether. But that was when I found the United Church of Christ, and that they were open and affirming to gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people like everybody.
Conversation for Adults.
Reverend Ron.
Hey, Jimmy. How are you, sir?
What's up, man? Welcome to Conversation for Adults.
Well, thanks for having me. You've always been one of the stars I admire, so thank you for having me on your show.
That's so sweet. The check's in the mail. The check's in the mail. So I come back to Cleveland, and of course it's a different city. And I have a different haircut, actually, because I've been to Chicago, I've been to D.C., and if you want a fly haircut, you go to Chicago or D.C. So if you just want to fade, you come to Cleveland. So I come back to Cleveland, and I'm trying to figure out who's going to cut my hair. And I probably spent like a good 6 months trying to find a barber. And I walked into a barber shop, and I said, "Can anybody cut my hair?" And the brother looked over. He had a head in the seat. And he's like, "What you want done to your head, boy?" And I said, I would just like this. I went, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I can't do that." But I eventually got a new barber, a white boy, as a matter of fact. Which this was the first time I let a white man touch me, but certainly cut my head. And the first time I sat in that chair, well, he came with some bona fides. I mean, he had a roster of rappers and sports figures that he cut their hair. I didn't give a fuck about that. I was like, man, this is. So the first time I sat down, I was like, but he nailed it. He nailed it. And in a lot of ways, he was a big part of me integrating myself back into Cleveland, and also my grieving process, because my haircut was very emblematic at a point of my mindset, because I had the buckwheat. I had the buckwheat, which looks basically like an atomic bomb of hair went off, boom, on your head. And that's how I felt. I felt like everything in my world had exploded. And so I was rocking the buckwheat. And I remember for a time, because he would just basically line me up. And he was like, "Man, I don't want to claim responsibility for anything that's happened in the middle." And I wanted to turn around and be like, "Fuck you," but I didn't. But over time, as my situation settled, my haircut started to, devolve. And I went from that to like an Esquire. I went from the buckwheat to the Don King to an Esquire to an Astro Boy, which was kind of like, all this is gone, and then there's this. And then I had the stroke about, it's been a couple months now. And naturally, they don't, when you're stroking out, they don't be like, how do you want this cut? I was out when they cut my head. Actually, they ruined the haircut I had just had, actually. And the you can't see it probably because it's grown over, but the stitch was right from my hairline about seven inches back.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was staples. I mean, I looked like I'd been McMurphy, for those non-readers, lobotomized.
Oh my.
But all's well that ends well, because I really like the low haircut life, and I think it kind of is emblematic of where I am in my life. I'm mellow. I'm coping pretty well with the loss of my wife, and my life is kind of smoothed out. So maybe I didn't need the Esquire kind of I don't know. But yeah, man, I don't. If you have to find a new barber, new barbers are woo. That is
It's tough.
man. Yeah.
I sort of pat it down on Sundays. So
Mm-hmm.
this is more like the buckwheat patted down.
That's really more like I want to say the Popeyes biscuit. You know, that's more like the Popeyes biscuit because you're rocking all gray.
It's gray for sure,
and it's on top of your head. And yeah, it kind of looks like with some butter. You know, if you walk through the hood, you have to run. You're like, man, I just saw the biggest biscuit in the
biggest
world
biscuit
walking down the street on this brother's head. We got to go get him.
Well, I grew up going to a barber in Cleveland and on Lee Road, and I went to him all for many years, from like 6 or 7 until after I graduated from college, and Carl was just the nicest guy, and his sons, they all worked in the same barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the
what
things
barbershop was that? Shout it out, bro. Shout it out. What barbershop was that?
Carl's barbershop.
Of course, I don't know what I was thinking. Yes, of course.
And I think it
wasn't in the Lee Harvard area.
Yeah, and I think it became Carl and Sons, but Carl was just a friendly guy. He, you'd call him, you say, Carl, how many you got? Because he'd have the barbershop full. He said, you in good shape. I have maybe 2 ahead of you. You get there to the barbershop, he'd have Negroes hanging from the ceiling. There'd be so many people in there. And so you just sit down and he wouldn't necessarily be in any hurry either. I was in there one time, and while he was cutting my hair, he looked out, he said, Brother Ron, he said, looking at the car that pulled up up front, he says, I think that's a 1957 Caddy. And so he put his hands on his hips and looking at it. And then he says, let me go out and take a look. So he went out, he took a look at the car, talked to the guy who owned it. It was in beautiful shape. Next thing I knew, he had driven off in the car. And my hair was like half shaved, and Carl's gone for a ride in this car. I thought that was just so Carl. He was the nicest, most gentle, wonderful, kindest man.
So the next day when he came back to cut your hair, after you woke up in the chair, you know what? So listen, man. I might get this. I've said this before on the record, but listen, this young white boy, I'm gonna shout him out. If I can think of his name, Chuck Falk. I'm sorry, Chuck. Got a lot going on. Had a stroke. So that's my excuse for everything. It's like, oh, you forgot. It's like, oh, hello, but anyway, I tell you what, man, I don't know what it is about the black barbershop, but I started going to one at Homeboy. I would schedule the appointment. I'd schedule it for like 12:30. Myself, naturally, I get there at 12:20. What about I don't sit in the chair until 1:45?
That's all right.
Right. And the one thing about the white man is when you're scheduled, you're scheduled. You're in the chair. It's not no about or hold on, Geechee's coming with lobster and shrimp, and we all got to see what we're gonna buy. Nothing like that. It's if you're scheduled for 12:30, the latest you'll get in that chair is 12:33. And the people that come into the bar in a white barbershop to sell things, or multicultural barbershop. I knew I hit it big when I was sitting in the chair. This brother comes in. I'm thinking, oh, he's got either oil, porn, fish, steak, or something to sell. He reaches in his coat and he pulls out some artwork. And he's got like 3 framed pieces of artwork. And he's trying, and I'm like, man, this is a whole new world. You know, you could live in a black barbershop and nobody ever bring anything that qualifies as artwork. Dirty Player magazine doesn't qualify as artwork. This brother had some, I want to say some prints. I don't know who it was. It might have been Liechtenstein. But I was like, what is this? I was like, what world did I just enter? Yeah. Where did you grow up in Cleveland?
I grew up in the Lee Harvard area.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I grew up around 153rd and Harvard.
Oh wow. Wow. So, yeah, that's a tough neighborhood.
Well, I hear it is now. It wasn't then. It was a nice neighborhood then. In fact, our family was perhaps one of the first Black families to buy on 153rd.
Oh, wow.
And, but by the time with White Flight, by the time I graduated, it was all Black. I think maybe there was one white family left when I graduated from school.
What did your people do?
My dad was a dog groomer. And my mom and dad had moved up from the South in the Great Migration because there were jobs in Cleveland. And they came to Cleveland by way of Peoria. No, not Peoria. By way of someplace in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And came to Cleveland and settled. And my dad got a job cleaning up in an animal hospital. And then the person there who was the owner, who trimmed dogs, taught him how to become a dog barber. And he became one of the best dog barbers in Cleveland.
Yeah, for a minute, I was scratching my head because I was like, homeboy came all the way up north to be a dog groomer, you know, but it was a skill he acquired. Got it. Yeah, that's and your mom. Go. I'm sorry.
And that, like I said, he became one of the best in town, and he worked kind of a carriage trade kind of thing where he had some clients in Shaker, in Beechwood, and he did all right.
That's a good middle class living. Yeah, that's a good middle class living, dog grooming. Yeah,
sent me to college on it. Yeah.
Wow. Was your mom working?
Mom wasn't working. No, she was a homemaker.
Wow, your dad was cutting some heads, some doggy heads for real. But yeah, but I mean, not for nothing. I mean, that is. I've heard the tales of people making 6-figure incomes grooming animals. And Terry McMillan's ex-husband, she set him up in a dog grooming business until it all went bad. You know, shout out to Terry if she's watching. But yeah, I digress. What high school did you go to?
Yeah, I went to John F. Kennedy High School. My parents, like I said, moved up from the South, and my folks had probably a 6th and a 3rd grade education about that level. Wow. My parents were older. I was adopted, actually. And they couldn't have children, so I got adopted because Mama had been babysitting for me when I was young, and my birth mother had tuberculosis, and so they kept me for those years. And then after my birth mother got out of the sanatorium, she asked Mama and Dad asked to keep me, and she said yes. So that's what happened.
Did you have any relationship with your birth mom?
Well, it's an odd story because she called me out of the blue on my 40th birthday.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And said happy birthday and told me who she was and what, and she said, I'm your birth mother. And although she didn't use that language. And she said, if you'd ever like to get together and talk, this is my number and so forth. It was on my birthday. And so the next day, I agreed to meet her. At that time, my mother who adopted me, the only mother I knew, had Alzheimer's at the time. And so I went over to meet her and we chatted, and she had pictures because there were no baby pictures of me for those obvious reasons. So she had baby pictures and had pictures of my siblings. And so I got to see them, and she had a picture of my birth father, to whom she was not married. He had been a bus driver, and she was a rider on the route, so to speak. And she said that she didn't think he had ever seen me, but that last she heard he was in California. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of it. And fast forward about almost a year, this woman comes into my office building. I had an office on 105 in the center there, and she had gone on a tour of the building and said, I was here yesterday. And she said, I'm back because you are the spitting image of my brother-in-law. And I said, what's his name? And she said, Willie Smith. And I said, does he live in California? She had said, well, yeah, he does. How did you know that? So I took her in my office, and I had this little picture of Willie in his bus uniform.
Wow.
I said, is this him? She said, yeah. And what was amazing was that she sent a fax picture of me in an article that was written. And he said, there's no denying him, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And the odd thing to me is two odd things. First, I am like the spitting image of him. It's almost like I am a clone of him. Not only in the way I look, but voice, the way I hold my hand, the way I stand, everything. I am like, he's like me, I'm little me, And it was it was cool to make that connection. But the weird thing is that my adopted mother, who had Alzheimer's and was in a facility at the time, she died that night. And I didn't even have a chance, there was we didn't talk or anything, but it was like a completion thing. So right after that, I went out to visit after the funeral and got to meet Willie and the whole family. He had gathered everybody together. We had lunch first, and then he had me over for dinner with the family, and it was great,
That seems like the kind of thing that would just open up more questions than provide answers.
Well, it opened up a lot of questions, but, I hadn't been seeking, my birth parents. I wasn't one of those people who wanted to meet their birth parents. I thought,
you didn't miss them.
Yeah. So it was like, I thought, I had the best parents in the world. I mean, they were great. And my mother was this, I always thought of Dorothy Parker-esque kind of wit. And Daddy was just a good, hardworking guy. And, he loved Queen Dorothy, and he had to because she was demanding.
I remember you used to speak of her fondly around the office. Oh,
yeah.
Are you still in contact with your birth people?
Oh, yeah. In fact, more so. In fact, one of my sisters is coming to my congregation now. So
is that tough? Is it tough to mind those relationships that from people that have your blood in you, but you haven't known them? You haven't known them.
Well, yes, right. It's been wonderful.
Oh, it hasn't been tough at all.
No. Well, on one side it was tough. On my birth mother's side, I think it was tougher because when we got together, she's the one who called me. I think she wanted to make up for lost time.
Nah, there's none of that. Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think she thought that because my mother was dying with Alzheimer's, that she could step in and take it from
Well, she gonna take you off for ice cream? What's she gonna do? I mean, there's none of that. It's none of that.
So, and adopted kids have issues.
Tell me about that.
Everybody I know who's adopted. And it is that basically one thing, all adopted children I meet have this one issue. And that is that you were fundamentally rejected, or you've got this feeling of having been fundamentally rejected by the most important person in your life. And it's, you just can't make up for that. And I always tell parents who are about to adopt a kid, I say, now, this is a great thing that you're doing. But, none of these stories like we chose you and all this kind of stuff is not going to make up for the fact that this kid is going to feel a sense of abandonment because the person who gave birth to him gave him or her up. And if you can't deal with that and the issues that are going to come from that, don't adopt a kid.
So that discovery didn't fill that hole for you?
No, it didn't. But, it was great to have that relationship. It was okay. But meeting Willie filled more things. We were more alike.
That's what I meant. I meant like finding your birth people, that relationship didn't fill that hole.
No, nothing will ever fill that hole. But it filled other holes. And so that was great, and like I say, more on the birth father side than on my birth mother side. On my birth mother's side, they had some issues with me. They had issues with the fact that I was gay,
I knew before you even said it. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah.
It was like, so, and I thought, I'm 40 years old and I'm not going to, and my parents who were very conservative, who loved me, they got over it. So, I didn't go looking for you. So,
right. So take it or leave it, honey. Yeah. Right.
This is me. This is who I am.
Right.
And so, yeah. So it's been interesting.
How do you come out to conservative parents? How did that happen? Were you in college or were you in high school? Or was it younger?
I was in college. But it was like, I always knew something was different. And my freshman year in college, I began to...
Shout out to college.
University of Rochester.
Good.
And so my freshman year, I had decided, I had a very sheltered upbringing. I grew up really conservative.
What do you mean?
We were my parents were holiness, which meant no drinking, no dancing, no card playing, no movies, not even bowling. I mean, all that was, and so
Jesus. Wow.
I was in church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Sunday school in there somewhere, Wednesday night, Friday night, and it was like Jesus, Jesus all the time, and so, and all the kids were friends with each other because, you were always together. So yeah, no, it was, so I had decided after I discovered that I was adopted, I decided, my parents are older. And even though kids give their parents a hard time, I decided, my parents are older and they really love me. They really love me. I said, I'm not going to give them a hard time about anything. So I never did. I didn't challenge them about not going to the dance or any of those things. I said, but when I get away from home, I'm going to try everything. And I did.
Yeah. So
methodically. And so in college, I had this girlfriend. Her name was Anna, and she was a Cuban Jew.
Nice.
Whose family had come over in the revolution, and we'd gone out and then we were both pre-med. I was pre-med, and so was she. And so Psych 101 was our ace, to get your QM.
Yeah.
Because it's all about getting your QM high enough to get into medical school. And so it was a contract course where you got a B by getting with your TA and taking the little tests on each section. But you could only get an A, which we needed, by doing special projects. And one of the special projects was to go to a gay liberation meeting, which was the club for gay people on campus, and writing about your experience and turning it in. So we decided to do that. Anna and I went to the meeting together. And when I came out of that meeting, I said to Anna, I said, that was interesting. I said, I have never had sex with anybody. How do I know I'm not gay? And I said, I'd like to explore it. I said, I thought it might be interesting. She agreed to that, that I could explore a little bit. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I love it. But so, how did you tell your parents, though? How did you come out to your parents?
Well, I my parents were Southern, and everything isn't talked about, but there are times you come to an understanding where things are kind of unspoken.
So you didn't officially come out, but they just knew.
Well, it was a little more than that because, in the Black church, when I came home, eventually, like right after Daddy died, there was some stuff up about rumors about me and my boyfriend, which I had brought to the church. And it's always funny when this happens. It's kind of like they accused him as if, like he had led me astray.
Right.
And so it was, Daddy died on a Monday. Wednesday night, that Wednesday, and he and I were living together. And it was a don't ask, don't tell situation.
Sure.
And so his car broke that day, and he said, I got to take the car in, and I've got I said, don't worry, just take Daddy's car. We've got 3 cars, and there's just the 2 of us. Why don't you drive Daddy's car? So he drove Daddy's car to church.
Oh, shit.
And
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
When he drove Daddy's car to church, that was it. Somebody cornered the pastor and said, "What's he doing here driving?" My dad's name was James, driving James' car like he's Ronnie's wife. And so when my partner got home, he called me because I was over Mama's at the time, because Mama was still, my daddy just died on Monday. And so they were like, he says, "What should I do?" I said, "This is not the week to come out." I said, Mama's really upset, and she doesn't need anything else. I said, "This is the week. I don't care if it's a lie or not. Deny, deny, deny."
Okay. Wow.
And so that's what I said. The only thing I care about is making sure that Mama's going to be okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. And the minister was, even though he and my dad had been close, he was really chilly with me about the funeral preparations and everything. And it hurt. And then the people of the church had sort of gotten kind of frosty with me. But it all worked out. I continued to come while my mother was alive, while my mother was at the church, and gave it a few years. And then I left the church and thought I was going to leave God and church altogether. But that was when I found the United Church of Christ, and that they were open and affirming to gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people like everybody. So it all worked out for me.
And that ends up being where we met, because and I always tell the story about how I became a professional writer, because the UCC was my first professional. I had been doing different op-ed pages and stuff all around the country. And but I didn't have like a steady writing job. And as my grandfather would say, a job, that had benefits and shit attached to it. Nah. It was more like writing was like my DJ gig. It was like, I would do it here, I would do it there. I get a nice fat check for it. But I'm also, not quite 30 yet. I went to apply to United Church of Christ, and it was a weird thing, because who was the assistant to the department? She was a black woman, kind of
Cheryl's?
No, it was she worked directly with Bob, Reverend Bob Chase. Black woman, glasses, kind of thick.
Oh yeah, Freckles.
Freckles, thick, yeah.
Yeah. What was her name?
It was an R.
It
was an R on her first name. I want to say.
Oh boy.
Well, at any rate, she's the one that would ultimately call me in for the interview, and because I got good ears, I knew she was black. So I was like, okay. Because I really just applied for the job on a lark. Because I'd applied for so many writing jobs and been lied to. I had applied for a job at Scene. They were like, "Oh well, we only employ college graduates." And it's like, which is a fucking lie, And at that time, but I believed it because I didn't have much in the way of education. I was a high school dropout at that point, and I was already kind of weirded out, making really big money. And by big money, I mean close to six figures, but not reliably, writing. So, but I didn't expect to get a job. When I threw in my hat, I threw in like a package of some stuff I'd written, some local stuff, and maybe like one or two other things I'd written for national, and I get called in, and you were actually at my interview. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I walk in there, and I believe I had maybe a 6 or 7 inch pointed beard on my chin, and dreadlocks down my back, and I think I had a reasonably okay suit, for something that had been bought off the rack. And I didn't, but I was weirded out because when I walked in there, I saw all those white people. I was like, yeah. And then I did see you. And then I saw the woman, she was light skinned. I saw Cheryl, and there was other sister. And I was like, okay, at least I shot my shot. I came in, and I was getting a good vibe from Bob, the Reverend Bob Chase, who at the time was the head of the communications department. And I think by the time I got home, and I think I got a call, if not the same day, the next day. And he ended up paying me because he asked me, how much do you want? And I said, man, I love to write. I'm like, I would write for food, if I could, but, I don't know, man, you do what you need to do, and if you're going to offer me the job, I didn't say it. I wasn't that eloquent. I was like, I don't know. I do remember saying I would write for food. I was like, yeah, I'll write for food, which you don't say that at an interview because they'll pay you in food. Turns out, I would find out later that they paid me the top amount. I mean, walking in the door, they paid me top dollar that position paid. And I think that was Bob. And Bob would tell me later that was his show of regard for me and my passion and what he saw as my talent. I don't know that I had this talent. I just knew that I could write.
You did.
And when I got home, I took the call, and my wife comes home from work, and I said, you know what? I think I just had an interview with the Mormons. I mean, I had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't know the UCC church from anything. I do remember this line of inquiry. I do remember Bob asking me something about, and you and Andy were in the meeting, and I believe he was asking, well, because of the perceived preternatural homophobia of Black people and Black men in particular. I remember him asking me, well, how'd you feel having a gay boss? I was like, bro, I had a gay boss for 4 years. I DJ'd at a gay bar. I DJ'd at Numbers, So yeah, I've worked with the community for years. I've marched with the community. I feel fine. I got no problem with it. I mean, I knew what I was supposed to say. I knew I was supposed to like ruffle and be like, man, but I was just like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. And I got the gig. And then that ended up being how you and I met. You weren't my boss.
Absolutely.
But Andy was my boss. And Andy, man. And Andy was, and Andy taught me a lot about writing. He taught me about writing.
He's knowledgeable.
And it was clear that maybe immediately he didn't sit horses with me very well. And there was an editor of the UC News, the editor of the UC News. And we got on a little better. But I remember having a sense of the atmosphere I was walking into because I was like, okay, this is essentially the white liberal church. I got it. I nailed it. But I remember one time, like early in, somebody was pointing you out as if I didn't know you. I was like, oh yeah, I know him. And they were like, yeah, he's the Uncle Ben on staff. I was like, and they thought they were being clever because your hair is all white. And it's been all white as long as I've known you. I mean, you got that Phil Donahue all white dude. I mean, you probably came out the womb all white with the hair all white. And she just thought it was the most clever thing. I was like, man, these are just regular old white people. Many of them telling themselves that they've kind of elevated themselves to tolerate Black people on a level. And I even remember, this is funny. I remember taking a picture with one of the ministers, a woman, and she pinched my behind. Right? I hadn't been there 2 months. And I was just like, I was like, this is different. I was like, but in a lot of ways, I felt like this was my trial by fire. Number one. Also, I had an agreement with my wife that because it just seemed like a long shot. I was like, yeah, my then wife. I was like, yeah, if I get a job writing, we'll make a baby. But until then, no, because babies are expensive. And then the night I told her that I had gotten a job, I come home, it's dark, my stepson is gone, there are candles, and there's porn, and there's Chinese food, and I'm like, oh, and as you would,
we're gonna get serious tonight,
and the rest, as you would say, is Jalen Joseph Israel, my youngest son. But I digress. Yeah, I learned how to write at the United Church of Christ because I had written in my voice, but I was learning how to write in a voice that was completely foreign to me, about things that were basically completely foreign to me, and
which was helpful to us because you looked at it in fresh new ways.
It's interesting. I remember that there were a couple moments when I was at a loggerhead with the department, with my boss, and the church as a whole. Like when Evan had sent me down to Burlington to do a feature about 2 UCC churches. On the surface, yeah, sure, why not? As it happens, people in one church had owned the relative and the people and the church across the way, which I found to be a very intriguing story, a very intriguing.
It is.
However, maybe you don't know the backstory, but or maybe, however, I sat with the people in the white church, and it was late. It was a scene out of To Kill a Mockingbird in terms of like the creepy South, the creepy, dark crickets and frogs, all that. And I'm in the church, and I'm telling the why the minister turns to the 3 other people in the meeting. Why they send this boy down here? Why they send this boy down here to rile all this up? Because a lot of what I was writing about was apparently the people in the owner church had mowed down the headstones of the relatives of the people in the slave church. And
yeah.
And it didn't occur to me. It just occurred to me. It's just church, shiny, happy people, church going, UCC, everybody loves everybody, which had been a lot of my experience. But I had never been so afraid because I don't know anybody in the South. And this was the furthest South at this point in my life I had ever been. And I promise you could hear a rat pissing on cotton a mile away. I mean, it was quiet. It was dark. There were no street lights.
I knew where you were. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was sitting in the church. It's like I could die. I remember thinking that I could seriously die. And then I went to go talk to the people in the slave church, like complete opposite. I mean, they had come to terms with this. And they were just like, yeah, whatever. I remember talking to Thurble. I forgot his last name. Thurble was a good guy. But suffice to say, because we ended up killing that piece. We ended up killing that piece, and we didn't run it. There was a couple instances like that, one of which actually led to me leaving the organization. I was there for a goodly while because for a while it became like easy money. For a while, I mean, it was fun. It was easy money. I got to meet who's the Jewish senator who ran later? What's his name? He's famously libertarian. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Lieberman.
I met Lieberman. I met a lot of people. I met Obama in Chicago at a synod, smoking Newports behind the venue. I mean, it ended up being it was educational. So I was loving it. I went down to I was sent down by Evan to cover a rift between churches in Cincinnati. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, I do.
The Reverend Bill Land, I believe his name was, and then he was beefing again with some white people down the way, and I got kicked out of a couple. I was there as a journalist, so I had credentials, but I got kicked out of a couple, for lack of a better word, white church meetings. And when I came back to the United Church of Christ, I went to the head. I went to Bob, and then I went to because I guess they had kicked me out of a meeting with the Reverend John Thomas's blessing. Like, yeah, he doesn't get him out of there, get him out of there. But I was there on the behalf of the church, and not so much the church, but the people in the pews. I was a reporter. I wasn't wearing a dashiki and an afro, with big glasses. I was a reporter. So you don't know this. So I'm telling you, I'm giving you some tea. So when I got back to Cleveland, and I ended up writing a piece without any. I wrote a couple pieces, but it didn't include some important information. Bob takes me up to see John Thomas. And I wanted an apology. Straight up, bro. I want an apology. I'm here working for you, working for the people in the pews. And you're supposed to be, the white liberal church, and you kick the black reporter out. What's that about? John looks at Bob and says, "What the hell is this?" Again, why are you wasting my time with this? Pointing to me. And I was heartbroken because I had been drinking the UCC Kool-Aid. That this is the place of love, that this is open and affirming to everybody. Black, white, straight, gay, hamsters, guinea pigs, everybody. And here I had met the Grand Poobah. And he wasn't just dismissive, he was angry. He was angry. And I was hurt. And Bob was embarrassed. Because I think Bob thought he was going to, and Bob was embarrassed. And that ended up being strike two. And then Jason Blair happened. And I remember we had a staff meeting, and I was just saying how messed up it was that Jason got caught and had really kind of tainted the name of all young black journalists. Within an hour, Evan had accused me of plagiarism, writing for the church. And I was like, and this wasn't our first butting heads. He had seen some stuff I'd written outside the church and was trying to call me on the carpet. And to which Bob said, easy. Whatever he writes outside the church is what he writes outside the church, But he was accusing me because Jason Blair did it. Obviously, there's a line between me and Jason, right? There is no direct line between me. We drunk beer one time. That's about it. But if Jason Blair did it, then all young black journalists might be a virus. Yeah. All that to say that ended up being the precursor. That ended up being the straw that broke the back. Being accused of plagiarism, just prima facie, not for any good reason, just because I had mentioned I wasn't sympathetic to Jason. I was more sympathetic to me as a young black journalist having to deal with what was going to come after, and then not an hour later it comes. And it came in the last place I expected. It came, like I said, in the shiny, happy church. which I'd really come to love at that point, but decided, yeah, this isn't for me. And I got out of there and I went to go work for Scene. And as you would say, the rest is history. You would stay there for some years, and Vanguard, the God is Still Speaking program, and some other things. And next thing you know, I turn around, and we've spoken in the between time because you gave me a reference for Miriam Wright Edelman when I was applying for the Children's Defense Fund. Yeah, when I went to go work for that NGO. And man, let me just say, you don't want to know how your civil rights sausage is made. Just let me just say that. You know what I mean? It's one thing to, eyes on the prize. It's one thing to see it on PBS. It's another thing to see it in front of you, to the point where I recently pitched to a writing partner an idea about having like a love and hip hop style civil rights soap opera, with like Al Sharpton, Miriam Edelman, Wright Edelman, and like Martin Luther King, and like all the paragons of the movement. Because behind the scenes, man, oh man, shout out to Miriam, who's she's currently, I believe, CEO emeritus. She's chilling. Her and that she didn't have a little dog, but she her assistant did. But she was generally sweet as pie.
She seemed like a nice person.
She is still with us, but she's just chilling now with her husband, Dr. Edelman. I digress. So next thing you know, I'm sitting here and I'm addicted to CBS This Morning because Gayle King, just those two words, just Gayle King. Gayle King, man, it's just so many things. I mean, if she ever, man, if I ever, listen, and I want you to remember, I want you to remember this. If I ever get on CBS This Morning, I'm going to shoot my shot in front of, the world. I'm going to be like, so what's up with coffee after this? I swear on God, I'm going to shoot my shot, and I'll probably be summarily shot down like Oswald shot down Kennedy, but it won't be because I didn't try. But I'm watching CBS This Morning. And then your smile, which is unmistakable. I would have thought you'd have kind of, shaved, balled it out, but no. The hair's a little different, but the smile is unmistakable. And you're going to be on the next segment talking about Racist Anonymous. And I swear, I put my pants on. And black people, we sit on the couch in our underwear when we own the house and everything in it. I put my pants on. I said, I cannot wait. And then you proceeded to tell America about Racist Anonymous, which sounds like a great idea. Let's just unpack what is Racist Anonymous and what does a relapse look like, by the way. But we'll get to that. Go ahead. What is Racist Anonymous?
It looks like America, but Racist Anonymous is basically, if we look at Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, let me back up. The idea came from thinking about racism as an addiction. It seemed to me that the reason we can't seem to get over our racism is because one of the reasons is because we're addicted to it. It's so much a part of us. We can no more escape racism in America than a fish can swim in the ocean and not get wet. Not only among people who are sort of the originators of the racism, but those of us who are reacting to it. And as in alcoholism, the first step is to admit that you have a problem. And it appears to me that in America, we've never taken that first step to admit that we have a problem. So that's one thing. The other thing is that after going to Europe for a little while and various places in the country and seeing racism everywhere, like even in other countries, there's somebody that people have some issues with. And I thought, why is this? Why is it that everybody's got something, no matter where you are in the world? And I think there's a common thread there.
So how do you, first of all, what's so addictive about racism?
Well, I think it's almost in an anthropological sense. It may have been something that early man, just didn't like people who looked different. They didn't understand why they looked different, why they acted different. But that somewhere in us is this aversion to people who have external differences from us. And that's one of the reasons I think that even people who themselves have been discriminated against don't seem to learn that having that attitude is the problem, and they in turn will discriminate against others. But it's a vicious cycle. And so one of my questions was, how do we beat that cycle? And I think one of the ways we can beat that cycle is to be more conscious of the ways we pay too much attention to external differences. So when we redefined racism, we defined it as attention to external differences, so that we include with racism, attention to people who are overweight, people who are different skin color, people who have any external difference. Maybe they wear clothes that reflect they worship a different God, and we discriminate against them. And the question I came to ask is, what if we stopped doing that? What if we became more mindful in that Buddhist way that says, I'm going to question my reactions that come up like that. And what a difference it would make.
What was the first meeting like? How long ago was the first meeting? How long you been at this?
Oh, I think, what was it? It's been about 4 years.
Was there liquor at the first meeting?
No, we're a dry place. But I tell you what happened. There was an article about it in a newspaper. And so then the next meeting, people showed up from the community. And it was an odd mix of people. We had like one of everything. Mm-hmm. And so it was great, And we started meeting. It was supposed to be like an 8-week trial. And at the end of 8 weeks, I said to the group, I said, well, it was probably about 12 to 15 of us on average at any meeting. I said, do we keep going? Or is this the end? And they looked at me like I was crazy. They said, of course we should keep going. So it's been great. So the original group has been going ever since.
So the cynic in me wants to know, why isn't this just a repository where white liberals can come and dump their guilty racist feelings and feel absolved?
Well, no. First of all, with one of the reasons I like the 12-step approach, okay, is that when we used to have these discussions about race in the church, that's exactly what would happen. And I thought, that's no good. And what I saw in AA in the 12-step program, for one, there's no crosstalk. So you don't go to a Racist Anonymous in the same way you don't go to Alcoholics Anonymous to work on other people's problems. You go there to work on your own. So everybody who comes in the same way you go to an AA meeting and you say, hi, I'm Ron and I'm an alcoholic. I go in there and I say, hi, my name's Ron and I'm a racist. So we start there. Everybody's a racist, in my opinion. And there are two kinds of racists, the one that acknowledges and the one that's in denial.
Wow.
And and what happens is over that time is we become increasingly convinced about our own racism. So, yeah.
What about somebody who would suggest to you that racism in and of itself is a institution kind of distributed through a power structure, and that Black people can't be racist because they don't have any power in the hierarchy? You know, we can't be racist. What's your answer to that?
Well, in fact, a lot of, particularly in a meeting I had on the phone with Marion Wright Edelman and her staff. Wow. On the phone, it was a conference call. I didn't meet her in person. One of her staff was insistent that racism, it was impossible for Black people to be racist for that very reason. And I disagree, because as we define racism, we include more than skin color, for one. And kind of like when I spoke with a group in New Orleans, a group of African-American people who said, well, we don't believe Black people can be racist. I said, well, I can prove to you that Black people can be racist. And she said, how? I said, well, many of our churches, it was UCC churches in that area. I said, a lot of our churches were lighter than the brown paper bag churches. And so some of the white people that were there didn't know what that meant. I said, it meant that if you were darker than a paper bag, you couldn't join that church. You had to go join the Baptist church. There were, you couldn't join a UCC church or an Episcopal church. Those were churches and you couldn't join the Links either, or Jack and Jill, So yeah, we were discriminating against other Black people based on color in the same way white people were discriminating against us. Not only that, by our definition, not accepting people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender, anybody who's gay and lesbian and in the Black church knows how we have been discriminated against in church. So yeah, you have power. You don't have as much power as white people, but you have enough power to hurt somebody. And I've got the wealth to prove it.
Wow. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Wow. I'm kind of speechless now because you make a good argument. So 4 years on, can you thumbnail the 12 steps of Racist Anonymous?
Oh no, I'd have to read them from a sheet, but I can tell you the first three. The first one is that you have to admit that you have a problem. Right. The second one is that you have to realize that you're powerless to change it. And the third step is that you have to turn it over to your higher power. So those are the three basic steps. And it's interesting how one interesting thing for me has been the discovery that white men often have different problems than Black people have with this. With Black people, they have one issue, but with white men, the idea of powerlessness is really difficult.
Well, it's anathema.
them.
I mean, you're a white man. You pop out the coochie empowered. I mean, an infant has more power. A white infant has more power now and probably better credit than I do. So
That's right.
so so you're asking or you're suggesting to a white man that he is powerless. I mean, his first answer, whether he says it to you or not, it's like, fuck you. I'm not powerless.
I mean,
he rejects it. He rejects it wholesale. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So it's incredible how that is. And so, I mean, I think it's a barrier.
Yeah, white people feel generally, broadly, an entitlement, and white men specifically really feel entitled, which kind of gets to, in many ways, this is a hard curve, but the pandemic and the not wearing of masks, it's like, it's so ridiculous. And there's so many white men. And a lot of the thing is, you're not going to tell me I can't wear a mask. Do you know who I am? I'm a man. It's like, what? Or I can, it's crazy. It's crazy. And there's just this entitlement that comes with the skin, whether they know it or not, they enter the world and they're not conscious of it, but it's kind of like fish in water. I mean, you can't tell fish nothing about water. The squirrel can't tell nothing about fish. Like, what water? I mean, it's like,
it's so that way that it's hard to believe that these often brilliant people can't see that.
Are there lots of fights and tears at these meetings?
No, not really.
Not really, but there are fights and tears at these meetings.
Not fights, because we don't do any cross-talk. That at this meeting, a person can only come in and talk about themselves.
You ever had to kick anybody out?
No, never. No, not yet. But no, so nobody's going to come in and say, Ron, you're a racist. Because the whole thing was built on this. There was a study done about people using unethical products. And that if somebody was using, unethical products like making T-shirts with underage labor, for example, and you confronted them about it, that person might stop making those T-shirts. But the study showed that person would then be less likely than the general public to support the cause of those workers who were treated unfairly, which suggests that the resentment people have by being told that they're doing something wrong is strong and strong enough to change what they do. And so it was one of the reasons I thought, well, if that's true, then the way we've dealt with racism or with problems about racism is all wrong. Because that's what we do. We confront people who say, you're a racist. You should stop doing that. And I'm suggesting that we change that dynamic. We admit that we're racist and decide that we should treat racism the way we treat COVID. Say, how much of COVID do you want in you?
Wow.
None. We need to, as human beings, we need to evolve beyond the attention to external difference that causes us to treat other people differently. From a Christian standpoint, I believe in this thing called the coming kingdom of God, and I say the kingdom of God would come if we quit, the bullshit. If we would, we keep throwing away God's resources, saying, oh, I don't want this one. I don't want that one. I don't want this. I don't want that. Like what you're doing.
Right.
And so I'm suggesting that we get real, and so much of the Bible is about embracing more people. Stop throwing the ingredients away and wondering why the kingdom of God hasn't come.
You ever get white people to come in and wonder why they can't use the word nigga?
Yep.
How does that go? Tell me about that.
Well, I mean,
It's got to be a tense room. Because first of all, if I'm in the room, I want to know why the fuck do you feel as if you need to use it? Like I mean, why in the world would that word need to be in your vocabulary? Why are you thinking about it? Why is it, irking in your mind to the point where he's like, I sure wish I could just say, it's like, what? Say, really, for real? So you've experienced that. I need to hear about it.
Well, some people, I think it's about entitlement. They have everything else.
Right.
And this is like, it's like, why can't I do this one thing? And as I always tell people when this comes up, I say, if I had a white partner, I'd say that's a no-no.
Yeah.
The day you call me a nigger is the day we break up. Unless it's in some,
Ron, don't run. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Because go ahead.
No, it's out of the question.
Well, I got a confession. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Father. It's been. I have a confession.
Yes.
I have in fact allowed one woman, white, to call me nigger. No, nigger. It was nigger. It was in an intimate setting, a setting such as she couldn't talk much because her mouth was occupied, but just enough to say, this is some good nigger dick. And I think immediately I did that. I kind of, but I confess, there was something mildly arousing about it. I don't know what's wrong in my head. It could be the idea, and I'm going to be gentle here because you're a reverend, that I was subjugating somebody racist enough to use this word freely. It could just been the act that I was subjugating this young white woman. Well, she wasn't that young. While at the same time, she was being racist. And I've not since I've been with a few white women and not since encountered that. But I did find it a little. So when you said, when you were going to say you were going to make an exception, I was like, oh God, Ron. I was like, no. I was like, please, don't, please. I don't want to know that it's like la 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 la. I don't want to know if there's any race play in the bedroom. I don't need to know that. I love you, Ron, but I don't need to know that about you.
No. But I'm just saying that I think there are situations where people might have banter between them, even close buddies who might play together and be able to say that. Not for me, bro. If you're my white boy, it's like, you're my nigga. I'll never be your nigga. But you're my nigga for real. You're my nigga for real. And if that word slips through your lips, listen, it was nice knowing you. I'm good. Double standard. Yep. The door's in front, bro. The door's in front. Yeah, I understand. It's only a matter of time before you piss your good friend off. They're like, nigga, you mother. And then it's that's it. It's over. It's a movie. It's Rosewood. It's a slippery slope. Understand? Yeah. I agree with you. I've said, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Yeah. But anyway, back to the meeting. Yes. People coming to a meeting have asked about that, and I've asked the same question you have. Why do you need to use that word? it's deeply offensive, and I think it's privilege that causes people to resent the fact that they can't use that word. It's not unlike the original story of the garden, where he said, you can eat all the trees in the garden except that one. And he said, but that one you can't eat. Well, of course, that made him want it all the more.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
I preached a sermon recently in the last few months entitled, What If Adam and Eve Had Apologized?
Wow.
Because in that allegorical story, if they had come back to God and said, we messed up, take us back. I said, what do you think God would have done? I said, everything we know about God suggests that God would have forgiven them and taken them back.
This Old Testament God's kind of he's a little vengeful, kind of vain, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but also deference to you because you're the reverend here. But as I read
there are people who would argue with me.
As I read the Bible, Old Testament God was mad, selfish, needy, and would crack your head open at the slightest provocation, or would threaten, or like an old black man, he would do like this. He would show you the back of his hand, and then if you didn't wince, you might have caught one. So I don't know about that. I don't know that God would have accepted Adam and Eve's apology.
I think even when we look at the Old Testament God, he sometimes would be hot at first, but that God would ultimately relent and forgive. So,
okay.
I think, and the fact that they came back, if they would come back and say, God, we just messed up. Give us another chance.
He might be like, how much you holding? Empty your pockets. Empty your pockets. What you got? You got an iPhone? What you got, bro? Run your shit. But I hear you. So you started this in the middle. It sounds like of Trump era. I mean. That was a heck of a timing, bro. That was a heck of a timing there. I don't know. 4 years on, what's been the reception? That's question one. Or maybe I'll reverse this. How do you graduate from this program, or do you graduate and you don't?
No.
Okay.
So
there's no little coin that you walk around with that says, I've completed the Racist Anonymous, nothing like that?
Well, it can, with the coin in alcoholism, you don't graduate from being an alcoholic. It just tells you how many years you've been in the program.
Are you giving out coins?
No, not yet. But it's not a bad idea. I'll credit you with the idea. But the idea is that we don't ever graduate from being a racist. Our goal is to practice our racism less and less so that future generations may come along and not be exposed to as much racism. Mm-hmm. So if we can start a movement where people stop saying, like Donald Trump was big on saying he was the least racist person we know.
Which is hilarious, right?
Yeah. That's right. But it's always the people who are the most racist who can't see their racism at all. Those are the only people, in my mind, who come through this program and they just can't, it's like, why would I be a part of this? I am the least racist person you know. Well, it's probably one of the most racist people you know.
Are you expanding this at all? Are you the only facilitator currently, or are you expanding it to other? Because this is happening out of your church. Is that right?
Yeah, we started it at the church, but we've got groups around the country, and one new chapter is starting up in Africa.
Wow. You got any in Cleveland?
We had one in Cleveland.
I saw them running out of town. Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, they were being run out of town. I remember that. I'm sorry, but what happened to that group? If you can,
the group in Cleveland, it really wasn't in Cleveland. It was a group out of Akron, actually. Like Cuyahoga Falls or somewhere around in there. Yeah,
they was out of Akron. They was too busy just dodging bullets. So I get it. Yeah, I mean, you can't always make time, for Racist Anonymous meetings when you just crawling on the ground trying to avoid bullets. So shout out to Akron. But so go ahead.
So we have groups there's a group in various cities around the country. They're mostly meeting by Zoom now. There are 2 or 3 here in this area. There's a group that's meeting in the Philadelphia area, but again, everybody's meeting by Zoom right now. And I can give you the link, and you can see where through Meetup, you can see where the meeting.
Yeah, that'll be great. So
I'm most excited about the group in Africa, because for that meeting, their issue is tribalism. And I thought they got the idea that it's not about color. As Americans, we are so fixated on color that we almost can't see beyond it. But for them, when they say it's about tribalism, and that they heard about Racist Anonymous, and so even though all these people are Black and all the tribes are Black, they're saying this is our issue.
Man, that's got to be a tough room, man. At least when it's white people and Black people in a room, you have some idea when the beef's going to come. But you in a room talk about tribalism, it might be somebody just, it just gets you in the neck with something. Holy shit. That's awful. I know. That's awful.
So it's been great fun.
Well, I'm so happy, man. First of all, I mean, but you're going to continue this tradition. I mean, you're this array.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
We've been having a lot of success with it, and it's gotten written up in all kinds of publications.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
So it's been good. And our website is rainternational.org. And, there's some good stuff on there.
Man, that's exciting. I'm so happy that I got up. Well, I always get up. I mean, I generally get up at about 7:30. And
especially when Gail's on TV.
And man, yeah, I mean, right. Yeah, I get up at 6:45 so I can catch Gail. And I'm always hoping that they get a good angle. But I'm telling you, one of these days, I'm going to do something to get on CBS this morning, and I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to be like, what's up? I'm going to be that guy, because she's always playing the role of like the thirsty aunt. And it's like, oh, well, I mean, if you want to be that chick, hey, what's good? I got you on Benihana. What's up? Cars outside. What's up? Uber's outside. What's good? But we'll have to wait on that, I guess. We'll have to wait and see how it bears itself out. And when they throw me on the concrete, I don't want you to laugh too hard, Reverend Ron.
I wouldn't laugh. I don't think you'd be thrown on no concrete.
No, I don't either. I think she might throw something else at me. But I digress. Reverend Ron Buford, Sunnyvale, UCC, United Church of Christ, my homie from back in the day, also facilitator, revelator, and that dude for Racist Anonymous. Drop your socials again. Here's where you drop your socials, Ron. Go ahead. All your relevant socials right here. Drop them.
What do you mean by socials?
I'm sorry. Your social media. All your social media. Yeah.
It's rainternational.org. And that's the best place to check out Racist Anonymous. And all our links are on there. So,
what about people interested in visiting Sunnyvale United Church of Christ?
Sunnyvale United Church of Christ is uccsunnyvale.org. And right now we're meeting by Zoom. And if you go to that page or to that link, you'll get all the information you need to come to church anytime you want. And we welcome absolutely everybody, no matter who they are, where they are on life's journey. So, and we mean it. So they took me.
Man, this conversation has been so refreshing, because normally conversation for adults happens with strangers. And you and I aren't strangers. But we have just enough history to be familiar. And but we covered a lot of ground today. And this was such a warm, intimate conversation. And this man, I thought you made my work. I thought you made my day earlier in the week when I told you about what my grandmother used to say about getting your pussy and your paycheck in two different places. And I said, you know what? I think that's the missing verse of the Bible. And you said,
it's in there.
Right. I literally rolled out of my chair.
It's in there.
I didn't think you could top that, but this conversation has been dope, man. I am so happy that you made time in your day to Zoom with your boy. And I promise I'm going to do a better job of staying in touch. And I hope you and yours are well. And listen, if things work out with me and Gail, I hope that you'll, oversee any. I'm not saying we get married, but I'm just saying I hope that you would bless the union anyway.
Anything you want from me, Jimmy. I remember the first day we met, and I remember working with you in the department and how talented I knew you were and brilliant and all those things. And so I'm just so proud of you and proud to know you. So God bless you, Jimmy.
Oh, man. The check's in the mail, Reverend Ron. Thank you so much for coming on Conversation for Adults, man.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself, all right?
God bless you.
The number you have dialed has been changed.